Hi, everybody. My name is Derek, and I'm here to help you when you need a win at the intersection of leadership and culture. That's what our company Wenwyn does. Wenwyn. Head to wenwyn.com for insights, perspectives, tools on how to navigate culture well as a leader in whatever space that you're in. I want to encourage you before I get into this episode to hit the like button or the subscribe button. We would love to keep this thing going. The YouTube algorithm needs our help, and so you would help us out by hitting either one of those things. In episode 4, we talked about time travel, the reality of time travel. It's not just science fiction, it's experiential. It's something that you can actually experience even today in this year that you're in. Then in episode 5, we talked about what does it mean to travel back in time? What does it mean to head to the past? What's expected of the leader? What should the leader expect? What can the leader learn? What are the takeaways? And I hope that was helpful for you. Now, time is obviously on a slide, right? Because wherever your present is, that may be somebody else's past or maybe somebody else's future. So wherever you're at right now watching this video, you're on a slide somewhere in there, but it's all going to feel like the present to you. In this episode, we're going to look at what it means to travel to the future. Now, whenever you go to the future, some future context, you have to be aware that maybe the whole aspect of whatever city or culture you're visiting isn't in the future, but maybe some aspect of it is. Now, there are some places that are at the cutting edge of worldview. They're at the cutting edge of technology. They're at the cutting edge of architecture. They're at the cutting edge of fashion. And they really are influential for the way the rest of the world goes. And so every place has equal worth, but not every place is equally influential. We tend to take our cues from certain places. For instance, Los Angeles has always thought of itself as being a very avant-garde place. And so one of the jokes I like to make is that in LA, I've never heard anyone ever say, hey, listen, go find out who else has thought of this idea first. Instead, they're always like, nobody's ever thought of this idea. Let's go do some research to figure out how close they got to our new idea. So there's just some places that are more contextualized, the way they view themselves. They view themselves in a contextualized way of the future. They understand that they're trying to lead society, whether it's true or not. There are, however, some places that are aspects of the future. So for instance, a place may have a great infrastructure, but it may not necessarily be in the future in terms of worldview. Some place may have great fashion sense, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's situated firmly in the future in terms of its governmental structure or its approach. And so we have to be somewhat nuanced here. We have to be aware that when we go to the future, we have to understand what it is from the future that we're learning. Now, immediately as the leader, when I say, okay, go to the future, you have to immediately have the kind of humility that recognizes I might not be completely in the future. There may be something that I should learn somewhere else, not just from the past, this truth that I'd forgotten about, this worth, this thing that I need to be reminded of and apply here. But maybe there's some place that actually has the methods and tools right. They figured it out. The problem that you're wrestling with, they've already worked through. And they've worked through it maybe because of unusual circumstances. For instance, after World War II, most of the cities were just totally decimated, but that allowed for a rebuild of those cities, and each city had to determine what from the past it wanted to keep, what kind of plans, what kind of streets, what kind of roads, and what they wanted to really invent. And so a lot of the great infrastructure in terms of public transit started to really crop up after World War II as they were rebuilding. And that's why some of the best trains in the world are European trains. They come from that area, that part of the country. So you have to be aware of the context. And not every place in the world has that, opportunity. Sometimes those opportunities come out of great tragedy. Sometimes they're born from great obstacles. But still, they're opportunities nonetheless. So whenever you go, you should be aware, certainly, that there are some places that have just figured some things out that you're still trying to figure out. That's true of people as well, right? I'm busy learning what in this world of YouTube means. What does the world of really online course provision mean? And so I am listening to those who have been doing it and are good at it. Names like Graham Cochran or Jillian Perkins or others, people that I admire in the way that they're able to really generate great content. So we're all learning from someone who is somewhat ahead of us, but there are also cultures and places in the world that are ahead of us. And as a leader, you should have the humility to say, okay, I need to go learn from this method. Now, sometimes you get in there and you just think, how did they do this? How in the world did the sewage system get so good? How did they go from toilets to bidets? How did this take root in this culture where in other places it wouldn't mean very much at all, or it just takes longer to adopt or longer to convince? People think we don't need it until they go, actually, that's a pretty good idea. Why did soccer take so long to travel to the U.S.? There's all kinds of questions that kind of spring up depending on the area that you're looking at. And there are certain world leaders in certain industries that are really kind of spread all over the world. So when you go, the first thing you want to ask yourself is, what tools or methods have they discovered? What tools or methods have they discovered? When you're traveling to the future, you're looking for solutions. That's really what you're looking for. You're bringing with you maybe a truth that they forgot, but you don't always know what truth you're packaging. It's just the nature of being steeped in your present. That's for someone in the future to go, oh, that's right. But what you bring with you is this sense of being a learner and going, okay. The second thing that you're kind of paying attention to is the entrepreneurial nature of the future. So what you're looking for are coming trends, right? What's coming down the pike? So what do I have time to deal with based on where I am in time? Because there's going to be a lag time. So you can figure out, for instance, in worldview, I noticed that there was about a 7-year gap between when things would be introduced in Northern Europe and when that vernacular through universities and the rest of it would make its way to Time magazine in the US. So knowing that there's a gap, that allows you some time to process. You're not having to react quite as much as someone in the future is. You're able to really process through what's happening and you can respond. You can take the time to learn and navigate. So you want to pay attention to the methods and the tools. You want to pay attention to the trends that are coming. But there's a third thing that you want to pay attention to as well. And that is the spirit by which the future is being engaged. So often when it comes to the future, you're having to invent something. You're having to create something. By definition, that means a higher rate of failure. You're going to make more attempts than the average person, and a higher rate of experimentation, because you're trying to figure it out. There's an entrepreneurial spirit that exists in the future, an ability to react, to find good ideas and react to them quickly. Years ago, around the turn of the century, the 21st century, from the 20th century, the U.S. began to test market its products in Europe. And that meant that risk takers and entrepreneurs would just stay in Europe to get the latest thing. And it was kind of an interesting shift. Loads of business publications noted the shift, and they're like, wait, why are you experimenting there instead of the $1 trillion+ economy that's here in the US? But it was a pretty big shift. Companies said, well, wait, before we introduce it for mass adoption here, let's figure out if it's going to work there. Well, by definition, then, you have created experimentation in a place where the culture has to get used to that experimentation. And if they can adapt quickly, that means that they can be on the front edge of figuring out what is coming. So as someone traveling to the future, let's say you're a part of a mission team, let's say you're a business person or a nonprofit industry, and you're trying to figure something out. When you go, your contribution sometimes is just encouragement. Sometimes the future just needs a body. Sometimes the future just needs someone to help. It's not that you're coming in with suggestions. Here's what we do in our context. And yeah, we don't have trains that run on time. In fact, we don't really have a good train system. But man, let me tell you what we have done in the realm of taxis. It's going to blow your mind. It's just not helpful for the future. And you can apply that by extension to many areas and many industries. So often we have to be careful that in our desire to contribute, that sometimes we contribute the wrong thing. Now, they're going to be paying attention, hopefully, to some of our insights in the way that we're processing through life, the truths that we're wrestling with, and they're going to go, oh, that's right, I forgot about that. Okay, how do I bring that back into this area? Oh, that's right, I need to integrate that. Oh, that's right, you don't have to have this in order to do that. So that's all going to be fuel for future context. But I would go in with just a spirit and a willingness to help them experiment. And I would say, listen, we want to help you. What do you need from us? I can't give you the macro necessarily, but what I can do is help you in the effort. I can be a good team player. I can help you figure out what doesn't work. I can help you celebrate what doesn't work. I can encourage you when you're down. I can at least bring you into a conversation that may get you thinking in the right direction. I can provide some context, some help here that will spark something that will ultimately help me, but really will be an encouragement for you in your future context. So don't think I'm going to bring tools and methods to the future. That doesn't really work. Think more, okay, I'm bringing myself and this kind of stuff that I'm wrestling with, and I'm bringing a willingness to believe. And it may surprise you, but that willingness to believe is a pretty powerful thing. It's so key. You may not be able to help monetarily. Your currency may not go as far in a future context. It's just that much stronger, or it's that much more dominant, or fill in the blank. And so it's not like you can give loads of money to help this thing along. But it's amazing what happens when someone says, I don't fully understand it all, but I'm willing to pull with you. I'm willing to help however I can. Now, as a leader, you're paying attention to some of those things I already talked about, right? You're paying attention to the tools and the methods and the trends. You're paying attention to the entrepreneurial spirit. And then you're going to take that and you're going to apply it to your context. So now, in many cases, you don't have to reinvent the wheel in your present context. You can go, well, look, here's what they're doing over here. And this is kind of where things are going. So we can either fight it, or let's figure out a way to communicate it. Now, if you can communicate to your city values or your cultural values, that's a communication strategy that will, I think, really help move that over the line. And so often where leaders fail is they have the talking point, they're just not sure how to communicate the value in a way that resonates to a present context. But overall, the principles of what you're bringing with you as a leader still remain. You don't have to reinvent the wheel because it's already been invented. You have to demonstrate why it works. And that's a very different thing. And it should give you some ideas, some ability to process. And you know it's not your context. You get that. Yeah, it's just that's not the way things are here. But you also know it may develop to that. So that lets you get a little further ahead and be a little bit more insightful and embracive of what is coming down the pike. Now, sometimes what's coming from the future isn't all that good. You're going to look at it suspiciously. You're not going to like it very much. Well, the good news is you have time to recontextualize it. You have time to deal with it, to reframe it. You may not be able to do anything about the reality of it. Social media is here to stay, right? But you can figure out how to use it as a tool rather than just react to it and call it either all evil or all good. And so it allows you to be an insightful person in the room. That's time travel to the future. Hopefully this is helpful for you as you navigate whatever context and culture you're in. I want you to be aware that we have a course coming out on social responsibility, kind of justice perspectives. We've got a great vision and strategy course that you can take, Wenwyn.com for more information. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button or hit the like button. That allows us to continue producing content. All right, take care, and until the next episode.